Hi guys, so as you can see, a different setting than what I'd normally have. I'm out in the kitchen, just finished a bit of gardening and I'm feeling good, feeling productive. So I felt like it was a time to do a rugby video. Haven't done one in a while now. So the interview went well with my mate Christoffel. Hoping to get him on again. Won't get him on before the Champions Cup final at the weekend. Unfortunately, I'd love to get his thoughts on that. We met before Northampton humiliated Leinster. And you could say it wasn't. It was. You know, I made a video on that and I put a lot of work into it. And then I was told that my work was copyrighted. There wasn't a strike against me on YouTube, thankfully, but they said, look, just take the video down. You won't get any strike on it. I discussed some fundamental issues in Leinster rugby, and I'm going to talk about them in this. I might actually release the footage just of me talking in the last one about Leinster and what I think the problems are, because I discussed that in good detail, and be ashamed to let that video go to waste because it's not all just analysing Northampton against Leinster. But just to summarise, basically, like it's not good enough. We've supported them. We've been great fans. The fan base is insane. It's probably a good time actually to discuss it because they've just basically dismantled the men's sevens game and stopped them investing in it. And Harry Nolte, you can see here. Sorry, one sec. I couldn't tell if it was Nolte or McNulty. It's Harry McNulty, the captain for the Irish sevens team. Um, and yeah, he was just coming on talking about how ridiculous it was and basically laying it out. There's a very good video if you want to check that out. I thought he summed it up pretty well. That was a livelihood for him, you know. So it's quite bad what they did. And in Ireland, we talk about not having the athletes, the players. You're going to get that if you invest in the sevens game, for sure. So ended up being moved. That didn't last very long. Trying to make a video in the kitchen, but it's always busy, unfortunately. Um, so not to worry. Just getting back to talking about the sevens, basically. When you talk about not being able to produce the athletes, look at Jordan Conroy, Nick Timoney, you've got Hugo Keane as well. All good athletes. You know what I mean? I just don't buy it. And then you look at Andrew Smith and David Kilgallen at Munster. Two left wingers and both were sevens players. Shane Daly as well. So they're good players, You produce really good athletes in Ireland, they're getting rid of it. We don't produce the athletes. What do you need in sevens to be really good? Well, you have to be fast. That's a given. You can't be slow and play sevens. You're just not going to survive. You've got to be physical as well, though. And you look at someone like Werner Koch, who Tarzan of rugby, but he's got very good all round strength. Obviously fast but strong as well. Like they're not going to be the big props. The front row wouldn't survive. Second row probably not either in sevens. But you want out and out athletes. Sevens is a great place to get it. And guess what? Ireland have been doing very well in that. They came second in the World Series just a year ago. Like, for fuck's sake, what are you not seeing there? I don't get it. They're keeping the women's sevens because it's hard enough, I think, to get women to participate in sport. So it's a good pathway for getting women into rugby. So I guess at least one of them is staying, you know. And everybody's saying as well that it'd kick up a massive shitstorm, if they got rid of women's sport because they're talking about getting women into sport and then they take it away from them. It would be quite hypocritical. So at least that gets to stay. But the men were starting to make real progress, as were the women. Um, I just can't get my head around it. There's a lot of stupid decisions that go on, and as Harry McNulty will talk about, he was saying that the IRFU talked about their investment in sevens, that it was a problem, but he said should they get a lot of funding given to them by World Rugby, so it's not as if they have to pull it out of their own personal piggy bank. And let's be honest, like the IRFU are not short on money. They the support from the Irish fans is huge, always is, every game. Yeah, we've been ranked number one in the world for a while. Obviously not anymore, but you just think whose fault is that? Like when there was World Cup on, everyone was optimistic. Everyone thought it was going places. Everyone thought this is our year. I didn't, and I'll admit that. um, I didn't want to be right with that one in 2023, but I just thought they're not going to show up. I just have a feeling they won't, and the All Blacks will turn up for the game. And sadly, I was right. Getting very fancy on my tea. Got ginger and lemongrass. Looks lovely. Not at all. Just turn it back around. There we are. Probably can't read that, but fuck it. Let that cool a little bit more. Um, but yeah, I was just thinking to myself, they're not going to. I just don't fancy them. Very pessimistic. I was like, but I just knew they wouldn't. And they had more game, like they had more minutes played than any other team, the Irish team. So to then hear that Leinster against Northampton, the reason they didn't win is because the players hadn't played enough minutes. It's just an excuse. There's always an excuse for everything. Um, I don't buy it. And while I thought that New Zealand would beat Ireland, I didn't think for a second Leinster would lose to Northampton. I thought they'd at least wait till the final to bottle that game against Bordeaux or Toulouse. I think we all thought they'd make it through, but they didn't, which is mind blowing stuff, really. And like, I'm obviously not able to show the highlights, which I wanted to, but I want to just highlight tries that Northampton scored, where I'd say the only one that they got that was decent would have been Freeman's. Yeah, Freeman's third try, Tommy Freeman, who had a great game, and he's an outstanding player, deservedly in the Lions. Just want to say massive shout out to him because he is a very good player. But you look at his second try, his second try was ridiculous. It was a box kick that was spilled by Hugo Keane and a fair contest with him and Freeman. Look, people knocked the ball on, no problem. But who was the first to react? Yarno Augustus, who charged onto the ball and then broke through tackles, gave a little pop pass, and then Freeman reacted immediately. It was how quick Northampton players reacted, and Leinster players were standing around with their dick in their hand. You know what I mean? Um, no ability to think outside of the game plan, and I think they say your biggest strength is also your biggest weakness. Throw always goes at an important moment, but your biggest strength is your biggest weakness, and what Irish rugby is renowned for is its systems, you know, like the old Leinster loop and all that stuff. And I kind of think to myself, systems are made to be broken. So when Joe Schmidt came in, he gave us a really good blueprint. That blueprint, of course, being the blue of Leinster. But when he had that, basically Ireland had a system whereby we had great moves and could come up with trick plays. And that became a thing that we were known for, and it worked. It worked really well. Not denying that, but a skill that we don't have in Irish rugby, and I've seen it time and time again, is heads up rugby. We have terrible heads up rugby. I made a video saying how France absolutely schooled Ireland at heads up rugby, and the example I gave was a good kick, Damien Penaud catching the ball just outside the 22, a dominant hit by Jamie Osborne, Maxime Luku having to go over and ruck, but then Tomo Ramos thinking quick, kicks the ball through, Ireland dive on the ball, and France counter up, blows out of it, and then get turnover ball. Damien Penaud makes a break after being smashed in tackle, and then gives the ball to Louis Bielbarré, who we're going to see in the final on Saturday. It's going to be interesting. Great player, really good player. But he chips the ball through, and if it's a foot race with him and anyone, he's winning. Doesn't matter who it is. I don't care if it's Cheslin Colby. Labib Beep is winning. And that try was an example, you know, just a simple box kick. Spilled by Hugo Keane. Everyone's too slow to react on Leinster. Then Augustus picks it up, steams onto it, you know, absolutely blasts through, and then gives a good pop pass over the top. Like, that's a kick, a knockback, a pick up, and a pass. It's that easy. So simple. And that's what annoys me is how simple the tries were. for Northampton. And like even looking at the first try, and I don't know why I didn't start with that, but that was just one where it's like it's a box kick. You're all set, you're all ready to go. But the first try was pathetic, and I can't show it, which is annoying me because. But anyway, you can check out the highlights and you'll see that Prendergast kicks, and it's a poor kick, but they say a kick is only as good as fuck it, what happened to me there? A kick is only as good as its chase, and he'd take a drink of water. See, I'm so wound up that I can't speak. But the kick chase from Leinster was appalling. So they kicked the ball, and you're supposed to come up as a line. Joe McCarthy is back behind everybody else. Prendergast is up ahead of everybody else. The line is terrible. It's a circle at one stage. You look at it and it's actually a circle. Josh Ram runs across and takes out about three people with one pass. Finn Smith runs into a gap. And then James Lowe makes a terrible defensive read, which he does quite often, I might add. Good attacking wise, but makes a lot of defensive errors. Still hasn't gotten that out of his game. Like Hugo Keenan comes up. I would back him 9 times out of 10 to tackle Finn Smith, which means that Lowe needs to drop back because he's not winning in the foot race with Tommy Freeman. Tommy Freeman's too quick and too strong to give him any head start. And James Lowe comes up too fast. And then once the kick goes in behind, he's never winning that. He should back Hugo Keenan to at least slow down Finn Smith. And if he does that, then James Lowe can come in and make a tackle, but he gets caught in no man's land, and the kick is so easy in behind. Like that's literally. So I want to break it down, one sec. So if you want to break it down, it's literally poor kick by Prendergast. Josh Ram catches it, gives one pass. Vince Smith goes through a gap, kicks it in behind, and a try. Like it's too easy. If you say if Northampton have to break Leinster down phase after phase, it's like 15 phases and they break through. You're like, all right, fair enough. But it's a catch from a poor kick, very poor defensive line. Finn Smith runs through a massive gap and then chips it in behind. So really, it's a catch, a pass, a kick, try. See how simple that is? It shouldn't be that simple. It's terrible. The pick of the bunch, though, has to go to it was Henry Pollock's try. Like that was pathetic, and everybody's like great heads up rugby. Alex Mitchell is a good heads up rugby player, and you could drive a truck through that gap between Snyman and Andrew Porter. But I'm going to come to Andrew Porter's defence in this one because he's the pillar, and you're always taught as a pillar to stay where you are, especially if you've got someone like Alex Mitchell. And we actually saw early in the season with Munster how they got undone through the middle by not defending the pillar position. Jeremy Lockman and Ollie Yeager were caught out big time, and it's not good enough at this level. You practice that stuff as a kid. I remember coaches telling me that when I was very young. As a pillar, you stay where you are. You don't move. Everybody else get around. So I'll cut Porter some slack for that. But the defenders on the near side, the blind side, there's 5 defenders sitting there doing nothing when there's all the Northampton attackers getting around. Like it's laziness if they're not fit. I don't know. But then Snyman, he looks across and doesn't make any effort to get over and cover that gap. And then it's a simple one-up pass. Henry Pollock and Alex Mitchell are in sync. Heads up rugby, like that's the thing, He looks across and then Alex Mitchell says, do you want it? Pollock steams through and that gap is too big. Way too big. Like any decent team could see that and exploit that gap. I don't think it's a bit of brilliance. I think it's just decent heads up rugby. But Leinster gave them every chance to do it. You're inviting people to run on. Like if you see a loose head prop and a tight head second row and they're wide apart, of course you're going to steam into that gap. You'd be foolish not to. So it's good on Pollock's part, but it's also very easy. And then a very half-arsed attempt of a tackle by Snyman, just a grab. Doesn't even dive for the ankles. He should at least attempt to dive for him. If he dives and misses, he's made a good attempt at least, but he doesn't. Sticks an arm out and that's it, which I don't like to see. And then Prendergast not committing himself to the tackle at all. And like Pollock was carrying it in his right arm, so as a coach, you'd be getting screamed at. I'd be roaring at him anyway. Henry Pollock could be saying, "Put it in your left arm so you can fend them off." But he didn't do that, and he didn't need to because Prendergast tapped him on the hips like they were playing touch in the park. It's like this tapping on the hips, dive for his fucking ankles. You know what I mean? I don't get it at all. Getting so wound up that I'm losing my voice. But it's not good enough, and I think the fans deserve better, if I'm being completely honest. They pay good money, and I've paid good money to go and see them as well. The November series was underwhelming, to say the least. Terrible performances. Ireland never fired a shot against New Zealand. They looked like they couldn't have given a shit against Argentina and Australia. They keep on having to rely on the forwards to score their tries. Like you score 15 tries and nine of them are by forwards. Like, and then four of them. Yeah, it was four. Were against. Jeez, yeah. So, yeah, the backs only got six tries and four of those came against Fiji. That's not good enough at all. Um, Mac Hansen and Jack Crowley were the only backs that scored against Argentina. So yeah, that'll make six. So four tries against Fiji, who you expect to score a lot of tries against. Van der Fleer got her only try against New Zealand. And then Doris van der Fleer again. And Gus McCarthy, who's coming along really nicely. Got our tries against Australia because our backline didn't do shit. And I was at that game, so I got to see it, for real. For real. Then the Six Nations, though, you look at it and we scored 17 tries, 11 of them by forwards, six by backs. Like, it's terrible. And then we need Dan Sheehan to bail us out against Italy because we just look like we're not arse. We couldn't be bothered showing up for that one. So, it's not easy being an Ireland rugby fan, trust me. And then to hear that the sevens is stagnated, they just leave it there. They don't put any effort into it at all. And they just let it rot. When it's actually coming along, and the players are starting to do well, they just leave it. No, that's not important. I think it is. And then to top that all off, I'm going to show you some URC stats, which I think could be interesting. I love going through this with the web page. It's just the official URC one, which I'll share with you in a sec. But imagine how bad it would have been if only Leinster were through. Like, yeah, they're sitting pretty at the top of the table, but like for only one province to make it into the playoffs, like that would have been an absolute travesty. Munster made it by the skin of their teeth. Now, good two performances against Ulster and Benetton. They did very well. Like you have to say, they did what they needed to do. Fair play to them. Got bonus point wins in both games, but they came very close to not making it, and that would have been very upsetting if they didn't make it. I think that's the first time in history it would have been if Munster didn't make it. So while Leinster are doing quite handsomely well, everybody else isn't. All the other provinces are suffering big time. So I don't think that's good for Irish rugby as a whole. And if we're not producing the speedsters, the athletes, why on earth would you take it away from the sevens? That means you're basically going, screw that, that's not important. But now you're taking away all the chances to make athletes that you're saying we don't have. You kind of need speed and strength if you want to play rugby. You can have all the systems and the skill you want, but if you don't have physicality and the size and the speed, what have you got? Nothing. And like we look at Prendergast and we keep talking about how he needs to bulk up and whatever, but he doesn't seem to be any effort on that part, and he's missing tackles galore. He's been found out so many times. He's not the most accurate goal kicker. He's not the quickest either. I've seen him try and run around someone. And he looks like he just doesn't have the gas to do it. I really don't understand their thinking, but they threw him in the deep end and said he was the wonder kid and could do no wrong. Not fair to do that to him, but it's also not fair on the lads who are trying to come up through the ranks. Jack Crowley, of course, being one of them. JJ Hanrahan's played quite well when I've watched him now for Connacht, and he's gone back to his own province, Munster, and he's kicking very well at the moment, which the Leinster kickers aren't. They're not the most reliable off the tee. It'd have to be said. And the big argument is, can Prendergast play well when he's not playing behind the dominant pack? And the evidence seems to suggest no. The magic eight ball would say. It's worrying, and I want to see now how they do in the playoffs, because I feel like if Leinster don't at least make the final of the URC, people are going to turn away, and rightly so. They're kind of sick of them. The first challenges that come up their way, and they fall at the hurdle every time without fail. People seem to forget that Munster are the last Irish province to actually win anything. And I think if they won the URC, it'd be great, but they've got a tough task ahead of them. They have to go up to Durban to play the Sharks. That's why I wanted my mate Stoffel on the show so we could talk. Keep saying show, but on the channel so we could talk about that. That's his team. The KwaZulu Natal Sharks, as I know them. Hollywood Bets just has a bit of a tackier ring to it, doesn't it? Doesn't sound as good. But I think Munster are coming good at the right time. All the Irish provinces have not defended well. It's been very poor on their part. And I want to actually, just while I'm on that, I want to show you a stat. I have it on my phone. I take stats throughout the game, but there's a few worrying ones now that would really we should look at and think why they're not winning is because they're not winning the crucial battles on the pitch. So just one in the Leinster Northampton game. So Leinster made 74 carries and 164 metres, right? Northampton made 59 carries, 382 metres. So, nearly three times as many metres gained and 15 less carries. That's not good enough at all, and I've got more than I need to dig up on my phone. So just going to pause it for a second. I'll come back. Right, so I've gone back way into my stats now. So it's going to be Ireland against Italy to start off with us, and then I'll go into the provinces, and you'll start to see a trend, a worrying trend emerge. So we talked about carries made, so the physicality, and I know Northampton scored some really good breakaway tries against Leinster, so you could say that, but it's also very poor defending. But look at this. So when Ireland played Italy in that abysmal game, the final game of the Six Nations, Italy had 54%, Ireland had 55% possession. Italy had 45%. Italy had 42% territory. Ireland had 58. And then we get to one now that I'm really worried about. These are the stats, and it's defence. That's something like, because we're not physical enough. We're not producing the athletes. So Italy made 167 tackles and missed 23. Ireland made 139 tackles and missed 28. And then Italy conceded 10 penalties. Ireland only conceded 4, but we only won that game by 5 points. And asked the ref, is time up so we could kick the ball off the field? Okay, so let's put that into context. Italy have made 28 more tackles than us, and yet they've missed 5 less. That's not good enough. And then I'll get into more stats because I do love my stats. So here we are now. Yeah, Leinster versus Bulls. So they keep talking about them falling the hurdles. This was the first game they lost all season. And it's their nemesis, the Bulls, who didn't play very well. If they played at their best, you'd say fair enough, and they were at full strength. They weren't at full strength, and they made a lot of mistakes and handling errors. But they just could depend on their maul, got over the line. That was it. And then at the end, Leinster had a scrum. That was very hard to watch. You think to yourself, get the ball in, get it out, kick it off the field. You're ahead by 2 points, a win in Pretoria. Let's go. They couldn't even put the ball to the scrum and get it off the field. Terrible game management. And, they have enough resources. They shouldn't be losing games when they have a one in 80 minutes and a scrum at the end. You'd say if they held on to the ball, actually, because they actually had advantage. You just need to go through the phases. And if they did that, they would have been fine. but they couldn't even do that, and then had to rely on a scrum at the end. So it was double whammy, Hold on to the ball, get it off the field. Oh, you knocked it on. Okay, well, it's your scrum anyway. Game's up. Let's play on. Get it in, get it out, kick it off. They couldn't even do that. So no sympathy for them there at all. So in that game against the Bulls, Leinster made 53 tackles and they missed 11. The Bulls made 74 tackles and missed 10. And this was 64 minutes into the game because it made a note. So if you look at it again, the Bulls have made 21 more tackles and they've missed one less. So another trend you'll see. I've stats from Connacht against Munster, but those are two Irish provinces, so I don't think that really helps my point. Got a few more here. So yeah, Leinster against Scarlets. Giving Scarlets bragging rights, but now Leinster can show that they were disrespected because they were, playing Are We Human or Are We Leinster? It's a bit funny, yeah, but it's disrespect. Leinster need to put some manners on Scarlets now and make a statement. But we'll see if they can, because nothing would surprise me anymore. God. Right. So let's look at these stats now. Leinster carried 32 times and so 3-2, 32, and they only made 99 metres. Scarlets carried 51 times and made 200 metres. So yeah, I guess like Leinster haven't carried as often, so fair enough. But the Scarlets are dominating carries, but they're also making so many yards. And Blair Murray, what a player! Tane Plumtree as well. Well, here's a stat now that should definitely worry you. So clean breaks. Leinster had 3 clean breaks and Scarlets had 11. And then the big one here that really cost Leinster. So the thing is, there's a lot of different things happening. Big worrying thing is defensive mistakes, not making tackles when you should. Ireland made the least tackles in the Six Nations, which is very worrying because it's not as if they didn't have to make them. They just missed a hell of a lot. So Leinster had quadruple the handling errors. 12 handling errors. Scarlets only had 3. It's very worrying. And Blair Murray had beaten 5 defenders with 7 carries. I've got all the ones here, and then 48 run meters. Tane Plumtree made 87 meters and 12 carries, beat 5 defenders. So that's 10 missed tackles already, right there. I didn't actually get the stat for missed tackles in that, but when you're making 12 handling errors to only 3 from the Scarlets, you can see why they didn't win. Not good enough. And I actually have some stats here from Leinster's game against Northampton. So the first 30 minutes of the game, and you'll see it right here now. So Leinster tackles made 30, missed tackles 11. Northampton made 45 tackles and missed 12. So they're roughly the same on the tackles missed, but Northampton have made 15 more. So it's just a thing the Irish provinces are not doing. Connacht against Edinburgh, so we move on to another province here. So, and again, we get the carries. So just not having the physicality or not making the carries count. So Connacht made 68 carries and they only made 148 metres. Edinburgh made 37 carries, so nearly half of what Connacht made, and they made 221 metres. And that's with Connacht having 63% possession, 70% territory. Edinburgh only had 37% of possession and they had 30% territory. Not good at all. And then, like, getting to the tackles made, Connacht made 28 tackles, missed 7. Edinburgh made 78 tackles and only missed 11. So 50 more tackles than them. Right, and then they're only missing 4 more. Like, so that means basically a quarter of Connacht's tackles they miss. That's not good enough, really isn't. And then we still have more. So bear with me. Munster against Benetton, great win for Munster, but I counted this after 30 minutes and you just see the trend emerge. So carries again. Munster made 32 carries, Benetton made 30 metres made, Munster made 117, Benetton made 144. So Munster had 2 more carries, but Benetton had 27 more metres. So Yeah, look, it is worrying. Basically means that whenever Irish teams are carrying, they're not effective in the carry. They have to do a lot more work to win the game, essentially. They're not getting over the gain line when they should. And also, when they're defending, they're missing far too many tackles. So I think I've gone on enough about that. Just had to do a rant because now that we get into the knockout stage, I think it's all well and good from Leinster saying that they came first in the table. Yeah, fine. But they got knocked out in the semi final. People were already going, oh, if they get to the final and don't win this year, they were assuming we'd get to the Champions Cup final at least. They didn't even manage to do that. So that's pathetic, really, considering. Um, and they're not a bad team. Like before you think I'm getting harsh, Leinster are a world class team, with world class players, world class facilities, and world class coaches. They should be doing better, but they're not. We should be expecting that they at least make a final in one competition every year. And if they do that, fair enough, but they need to start winning it as well. Like we should expect to get there, but we should demand better now because they're getting there. They've proved they can get to the final, but they have to win it. Their last Heineken Cup win was in the 2017-2018 season, and they won it against Racing, who were bottlers as well, known for not winning big games when it mattered, just like Leinster. But anyway, we'll share this. My favourite page. I love this page. It's really good. We're just going to have a look through the stats because one thing that I really couldn't get my head around was the selection, the team selection for Leinster. So against Northampton, let's just take this in for a moment, right? Against Northampton, it's knockout rugby. You're playing against the team and you have to win. And you play a prop like Keane Healy, who can only last 20 minutes. We know he's going to come off after 20 because he cannot physically do anymore. And you make Andrew Porter, the replacement prop, play 60 minutes. You play Tyg Furlong, who hasn't played an awful lot of games all season in the biggest game of the season, which it was at the time. And then Robin Slimani, who's proved he can play 60 minutes if needed. You leave him on the bench. I don't get that at all. You leave Geordie Barrett on the bench. Voice is going because I'm so overwhelmed. I have to compose myself. But I mean, nobody got their head around that one at all. And it turns out Leo Cullen even said he didn't have to play Robbie Henshaw over Geordie Barrett. He didn't have to do it. So that was his choice. You leave a world class centre, one of probably the best 12 up there anyway. Probably the best utility back in the world. We'll give him credit. He's a world class player. You leave him on the bench, and things are not going well at half time, but you don't bring him on at half time. Even if you had to start Robbie Henshaw, fair enough, but he wasn't playing well. You can substitute him and bring. You brought a loose head prop on after 20 minutes when there was no injury, so bring on a centre. It's not logical at all. They waited too long, too arrogant, and they were arrogant, Leinster. I have to say, as a Leinster fan, I might add, they were very arrogant. But then not taking the 3 points when they were like they had a chance 2 times to take it, and they didn't do it. Twice you have an opportunity to, even the score up. So at least you're going to extra time, where I actually think they could have won an extra time because Northampton had put everything into that performance. Leinster were starting to get on the up. Northampton only scored one try in the second half, so Leinster were in the ascendancy. You imagine had that game gone on into extra time, they would have won. But say la vie. Oh, that's nice. Clear my parched throat. The ginger in it will help. But okay, the selection baffles me. But then let's look at that Glasgow game. And I just think to myself, what the fuck? Because you don't put out your strongest team in the semi final of the Investec Champions Cup. what squad did we see against Glasgow? And bear in mind for this, Leinster were 9 points clear at the top of the table when they played Glasgow. Didn't matter if Glasgow won, Leinster had top spot secured. That was a given. So that game was a dead rubber. There was no meaning whatsoever behind that game. You know, Maybe bragging rights, yeah. I know a lot of teams don't like Glasgow. I understand why. They're an unlikable team. Good team, yeah, but just their attitude. They love to wind up the opposition. So wouldn't be my favourite team. And the fact that they're always arseholes to Munster, I support you, Munster. Don't you pick on our boys. And I mean, Leinster absolutely annihilated them. So bragging rights were already with Leinster, to be fair. But Leinster put out Jack Boyle and started Andrew Porter. They put Geordie Barrett in at 12. They didn't start Tyke Farlang. They had him on the bench. They didn't use him the whole game, I don't think. They made Thomas Clarkson play the entire game. Um, he was starting to come into his own, and he's a regular. I mean, whether they're going to put out Slimani and Furlong, but my point being, in a game that means fuck all, you start your best 12. You start your best centre, your best loose end prop, and then you put the lad who was coming into his own at loose end prop and Jack Boyle. You put him on the bench, which you should have done for the Northampton game. But for the Northampton game, you only put out a fella who can last 20 minutes who was well past retirement age. Sorry, Kane Haley, but he needs to retire soon. He's just not cutting it anymore. No disrespect to him. He's done great things. He's been a great servant, but he's well past his best. But we keep using him. And in a game like that, he was well off the pace. And you could see it. You could really see it. He was struggling out there. He shouldn't have been in the team for that game. Why not play him in a game against Glasgow if you want to get his caps up so much? Was he injured? He didn't look injured. But you put out your best team against Glasgow when it means fuck all, when a player could get injured. And then for knockout rugby, you've got your best team injured. That was a shite game, by the way. Leinster and Glasgow, absolutely terrible to watch. I couldn't watch the whole thing. It was just so bad. Why would you put your best team out in a game that means nothing and then not play your best team in a game that means everything? It doesn't matter if players get injured in the semi final. You've got to get to the final. That's the main objective. And it's Leinster rugby. Surely there's enough good players to fill in. I don't get their thinking Leo Cullen, Jack Neenab, or whoever. Just their thinking is bizarre. But the team also have to show up in fairness, so that's up to them. But let's get into the stats now. So in terms of attack, Leinster are up there, yeah, which is good. So are Glasgow Stormers are up there with points scored. We look at Leinster. More defenders beaten, more points scored. That's why they're top of the table. More tries scored. So I mean, good stats. Yeah, they have been top of the table all season. So that's huge credit for that. They've done that, but we know how good they are. It's not as if we don't know how good they are. They need to start winning stuff. Meters gained, and the clean breaks, Stormers are ahead of them in that. In Glasgow, look at Munster and Connacht up here, fourth and fifth, but yet they don't reflect that on the table. When we get to Glasgow, so the Glasgow were third on this table, of best attacks. Let's look at Munster. So look at the offloads with Tom Farrell leading the way in them. Meters gained, there's a lot of meters gained, there's a lot of clean breaks. They've actually got more clean breaks than Leinster. They've got more defenders beaten. And they've got more meters gained. Not more tries scored though, so that's the important one. Yeah, keep popping up and down. Connacht as well. Look at them. Their attack has been absolutely incredible. They're first in meters gained, they're second in clean breaks, and they're second in defenders beaten, and third in the offloads as well. And yet, they're nowhere this season because their defence has been so poor. Like Munster and Connacht, fourth and fifth on this list, and then Ulster are way down at 12th, which is not good. But let's look at the defensive stats. That's one now I'd be interested to see. Attack. All right, let's take a look now. Defence. The Welsh team's leading at the top. Just because they've got good back rowers, really good back rowers. So you see there, Leinster are second for attack, but they're not even fifth in defence. That's the one reason they brought Jack Nienaber in for the defence. Yeah, it's the Welsh teams showing everyone up. All the Welsh sides are, in the top five, with one Scottish team in there, Edinburgh. And I like naturally teams that are going to defend more who aren't as good attacking wise, you're going to have better defensive stats, you would assume. I mean, you better get good at tackling because you're going to be doing a lot of it. But the only Welsh team to make the playoffs is Scarlets. So you got to have a good attack to go with it as well. So total tackles missed. And there you are. See, so first. Tackles made first, but also tackles missed. So if you have to make so many tackles, you also are going to miss quite a few because it's inevitable. You can't defend for the whole game. And then turnovers lost is the big one why they're not doing better. Turnovers won though, like that's pretty impressive with the Scarlets. Second for that. But I'd be worried about the Irish provinces. Munster are all the way down in eighth, so are Leinster. Ulster just behind them. Connacht are second from bottom. They're third from bottom, sorry. Let's look at them. Tackles missed, 10th. 13th for tackles made. Ninth in turnovers lost. Turnovers won, 11th. We get up to Ulster. Ulster. Lots of turnovers conceded there. Turnovers won though. They're bottom. So they're not winning the ball back anyway. They're not really making many tackles, so they're not missing as many, but that's something you like to see. Third for tackles missed. So like for being a top team like Leinster, and then being eighth for tackles made, you'd expect to see that a lot higher than what it is. They're a team that supposedly reinvented themselves around defence, but they're still missing an awful lot of tackles. Like being eighth for tackles made and being nearly at the top for tackles missed. Worrying. Munster, they were average, it's so that's not a good stat. And the Stormers are very good for attack, but the South African teams like surprise me how bad they are defending. Let's look at defence. You would expect to see the South African teams way up there leading the way, but they're not. They're all down the bottom. Stormers are the worst for defence and the best for attack. They have all the flashy skills and tricks, but they're shy when it comes to collisions one on one. The Sharks now are very disappointing. Like they have the most Springboks of any South African franchise. First for turnovers lost, and that'll tell you all you need to know. 15th for tackles missed, which is a good stat, but they're also 14th for tackles made. So you be the judge. And now let's look at individual players. It's like because I'm thinking to myself when I look at the players, the guys who should be getting into the Ireland squad that aren't being given a chance. Tom Farrell has 10 tries this season, so that should be even higher. And he's joined top of the try scoring list, which is very impressive. Successful carries. There's our boy Tom again. So the leading point scorer is Johan Lloyd, who amazingly wasn't selected for Wales by oh, don't know how Gatland didn't select him. Look at that, he's joint top. Like two Welsh teams again at the leading point scorers. It's mad. Anyway, like you think Prendergast to be up there, not anywhere near there. Ross Byrne, Jack Crowley, yeah, all the way down in 20th. Jack Murphy started kicking very well, and Verne still. I've been impressed with him recently. Yeah, and Tom Farrell purely by tries is getting there. You'd expect to see Prendergast a lot higher than what he is, like considering the success Leinster have had and how they've put all that effort into him. The Irish provinces, like Tom Farrell is first, joined first, and then nobody else is anywhere near. Right, just gonna pause that for a sec while I sneeze. Oh, but yeah, like I mean, look at that now. Just had a fever fit there, so I had to pause it. Tom Farrell joined top, and then nowhere else. Gavin Coombs down in joint 14th. Can't be more than 114. And Joe Postlethwaite, not a Leinster player in sight. Now we got Shane Bolton, who's really playing well, and this lad James Hardy Langton, really doing well. And Ben Murphy, two Murphy boys starting to come into their own. I've been very impressed with them. Connacht really good in attack, but need to up their defence. And like point scores usually fly halves because they're kicking a lot, isn't it? A better looking stat now for the Irish provinces is the successful carries. And look, they're not Leinster players. Tom Farrell, Dave McCann, Gavin Coombs, Nick Timoney, which is very good to see. Like, so the top four are all Irish, which is very, very good. When we were talking about the gainline success and how poor it was for Leinster and also for Connacht. Well, let's look at this. You know, I'm for Ireland. Let's not forget Ireland, but these are players who've been knocking on the door and not getting a chance. Gavin Coombs, they don't like him, whatever reason. Nick Timoney, former Sevens player, like I was talking about, a real athlete, like well built and actually from the Leinster Academy, but they didn't think he was good enough. So to Ulster he went up north. And Tom Farrell also, he's a Dublin man, but I don't think he ever played for Leinster. I think he played for Connacht after moving to England. He came back, played for Connacht, and then went to Munster. And I didn't understand why they were signing him because I didn't think much of him, but he has proved a lot of people wrong. He's definitely found his groove at Munster. Paul Boyle down in eighth, Piers O'Connor, like Stuart McCluskey, Big Stew. There's not a Leinster player in sight here, except for Jimmy O'Brien, who I've not been very impressed with this season. Very good player, but has not played anything like we know we can. You know, top four, both they all play for Munster and Ulster. Problem is, it's too much of an individual thing. I'm surprised not to see McNabney up there because he's been very good, James McNabney. Simone, I guess he was top of the list last time I checked, as was this man on this side. But he's still there, so he's obviously doing big things. I haven't really seen it now, if I'm being honest, when I've watched Zebre play. Looks dangerous, but hasn't made that many clean breaks when I've watched him. Obviously, he's doing it throughout the season, so fair play. Looks like a good player, though. I've been impressed with this fella, Gabby Hamer Webb, built fella as well. Looking at He's strong. English fella originally. But he's a good winger. He's your out and out winger that you just want, always a threat and an athlete as well. Built like one. Here's O'Connor in joint ninth, not doing very well in that. Clean breaks. Tom Farrell, Bears O'Connor in joint ninth. So, like, to be fair, the top number is 23 and they're both on 19. So they're not far behind, Guessy. And again, a Munster and an Connacht player. And Jacob Stockdale, who's gotten an awful time, but is starting to play really well, which I'm delighted for him. I really am, because he got so much shit and it wasn't very fair. I didn't like the way he was treated. And James Law makes so many mistakes and nobody ever seems to call him out on it. Very good player, yeah, but why does he not get the same grief that Jacob Stockdale gets? I would just say because one, he plays for Leinster, and two, he's an Antipodean. So they're just better than Irish players, aren't they? God given birthright. They're just better than us and they can do things even though we can't. So they can try a skill, and if it doesn't work, oh, hard luck. But if we try, oh, you gobshite, why did you try that? And I know because I've been in the setup, underage in the Leinster academies and stuff, and that's how they work. It's like they let the Antipodean lads do whatever they want because they're gifted, but you're not. You're an Irish player, so you've no skill. They have all the skill, and you've none. That's how it's basically presented. And that's the thing. That's why you see Ireland playing their safe little systems that get picked off because they're so bloody obvious. But anyway, that's an attack. Meters gained. Jacob Stockdale is third. Defenders beaten. Jacob Stockdale and Tom Farrell. An Ulster and a Munster player again. Leinster player doesn't even come close. Shane Bolton down on 11th. Gavin Coombs in 16th. Mike Lowry enjoying 16th with them. Not a Leinster player in sight, except for Jimmy O'Brien in 46th. So again, we've got Irish players topping this stat of defenders beaten. So you want athletes. These guys are getting through defenders with ease. And nobody's putting them back in the team anytime soon by the looks of it. They're not the ones being selected for Lions, but they're doing all the hard yards. Peters gained, Stockdale is third, Farrell is seventh. Jack Walsh is first. I haven't really seen him much either. Pishantelli for Zebra. Again, not a Leinster player in sight. Jamie Osborne all the way down in 23rd. So there you have it. Offloads. We have a Leinster player, but he's a South African player, and he's got those big long octopus arms. So he's not going to be playing for our national team. Farrell top, Snyman second, Holland third, Coombs in fourth, and no other Leinster player. So the only Leinster player getting in the top four, and he's South African. He's not going to be playing for Ireland, and he's not going to be around forever. Not good to see. Not at all. Carries, Tom Farrell topping that as well. So we've three stats where Tom Farrell's the top of them, and then Gavin Coombs in here at third. No Leinster player in sight. And like you can offload the ball, like it's a good stat, like, but you can offload it. Doesn't mean how good you are as a player, but it's good to see that you're getting the ball free, you know. And if you Snayman's big arms, really long, gangly arms, and you can hold the ball like it's a tennis ball, I'd like to think you'd be getting a fair few away as well. It's a good stat though, but Northampton predicted it so well and they counteracted it brilliantly. Then defence, Gavin Coombs in fourth with tackles made. Sam Illo and Temi Lasisi, two black lads that play for Connacht. Really good tackle success. and they're both starting to get a bit more game time, I think. Nick Timoney at seventh, Gavin Coombs at fourth. So for tackles made, Fiddy Wycherley put himself about. No Leinster player again in sight, John Hudnett all the way down in 30th. Scott Penny. Like, Leinster players are not showing up anywhere in these stats. And that would say to me, because they rotate their squad so much, that's not very accurate because it depends on how many tackles you're making. You know what I mean? You're going to have more if you've less to make and you make them, if that makes sense. So if you only one tackle and you make it, you have 100% success. A lot of players that don't get into the team regularly, so that's a misleading stat. What I'd be looking at more is the stat on the left of tackles made, which three Welsh teams are leading the way in. But Gavin Coombs is sitting pretty at fourth, so but Ireland won't play him. Turnovers one, JC Pretorius, Zuliani for Benetton, who's a good player. Nick Timoney's the only Irish player anywhere near that stat. Ty Byrne all the way down in 12th, which you wouldn't expect. No Leinster player again. And Farrell, he's doing it all. He has gotten a few good jackals recently, I've noticed. And Alex Soroka was actually quite good. He's a lanky fella, but he gets over the ball well. And he's a blindside flanker in second row. He's showing them how it's done. Turnovers lost. Pierce O'Connor. Yeah, he makes a lot of breaks, but he loses the ball as well. Cordero, Farrell. He's even top of the negative stats, but only one, so we'll cut him some slack. Yeah, and then this one, yeah, I make Digo leading the way in line out steals. Josh Murphy as well. All right, we'll stop sharing. So yeah, guys, I know Leinster rotate their squad a lot, but you see that all the players popping up in the good stats are from other provinces. So why are they not being given a chance for Ireland? It baffles me. I really can't get my head around it. And look, it's not benefiting our team at all. We're seeing the lads breaking tackles, Stockdale and Farrell, but can't get anywhere near the Ireland team at the moment, it seems. So, I don't know. If Leinster don't do something in the URC this year, that's it, their credibility is gone, and I think people are just going to start turning away from them. I'm not going to bother my arse, if they're not delivering. I've been supporting all the Irish provinces, but it just seems to be constant letdowns. So, what do you think? Do you think Leinster can do it this year now that they've got more time to prepare for the URC knockout stages? Because they don't have a final to worry about, so they can prep for it now. But look, we'll wait and see. I'm not getting my hopes up. Just happy that there's two Irish provinces and not only one. But future of Irish rugby's not looking great. They're not doing an awful lot to bring through good athletes. They're getting rid of opportunities, and they only seem to be putting all their eggs in one basket, which is of course Leinster, big blue basket. Yeah, it's worrying times, but sure, look, we'll see. All right, guys, I'll leave it on that, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I know it's been a long rant, but I feel like it's long overdue. All right, see you.